Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Jared Polis, surrogate for the Harris-Walz campaign. Governor, welcome back to Bloomberg TV and radio. It's good to see you. The front page of the New York Times today described Donald Trump's closing pitch as dark and dour. How would you describe Kamala Harris's?
I'd add another word to Donald Trump's: confused, dark, dour, and confused. I mean, meandering, talking about all sorts of things other than what he'll do for the American people. Kamala Harris has a very clear closing agenda. It's about what she's going to do for you, the character issue, fighting for you. She's on your side, Kamala Harris for the people, and really showing to America that this divisive politics of the last few years is something that we can move past. It's time to move past former presidents, the divisive rhetoric of Donald Trump, and towards a future with common sense policies, a president who's going to listen to Republicans, conservatives, people with different ideas, and move our country forward for everyone.
Well, the other thing we've been hearing, though, from the vice president is ideas of Donald Trump being a threat to democracy, being unfit to serve. Yes, she would agree he could be characterized as a fascist. All of those arguments made in the final weeks of her campaign, not necessarily being made here, though, in the final 24 hours. She didn't even mention him by name yesterday. Do you agree with that strategy?
Well, look, I think the most powerful thing is that what you're hearing from those closest to Donald Trump, people who served in his administration, top generals, former secretaries of defense, that this is a man who should not be near the presidency because the risk is simply too great. They know him best. And I think that they make the argument very effectively. Kamala Harris is focused on a positive message of what her policies will do for American families, cutting taxes for the middle class, the opportunity agenda, moving forward with building more homes to reduce costs, helping to make sure that Americans have access to good jobs. These are the things that excite people about Kamala Harris, and it's a great note to end on.
Last time you joined us, Governor, we asked you about Donald Trump's planned visit at the time to Aurora, Colorado. He has since made that visit. If I remember correctly, you preferred that he did not come. At the time, he spoke for about an hour and a half. He had mugshots of undocumented migrants on stage with him, and he announced something that we had not heard about. If elected again, an effort called Operation Aurora to target undocumented migrant gang members for deportation. I wonder your thoughts on how that went and if it made an impact in your state.
First of all, we always welcome him here, but of course the Colorado that he talked about was very different than the Colorado that we experience every day. The city of Aurora has had crime decrease 2 years in a row, and we're of course working closely with them on all form of criminal threats. Look, I think what we need to focus on is what brings us together as Americans. If people are immigrants and they're following our laws, they're contributing to our country, they're working hard, we welcome them. But if they're violating our laws, if they're committing acts of violence or burglary against any others, we need to make sure that they are out of here. Kamala Harris is a former prosecutor. She's put criminals behind bars, and she will make our country safer.
Well, as we consider this idea of safety and of potential violence, Governor, what are you bracing for in Colorado tomorrow on Election Day and in the days that follow, leading up to when the electors ultimately cast their votes in the state capitol on December 17th? What is your role as governor in ensuring the safety and security of this election process?
First, of course, assuring the American people that votes that are legally cast will be accurately and fairly counted, and making sure that, of course, while we protect people's right to peacefully demonstrate, that we make sure that we keep people and property safe. No matter what the outcome of this election is, and I'm very hopeful and optimistic that the country will choose to turn the page and elect Kamala Harris, we know that almost half the country will be disappointed in the outcome. But no matter the outcome, we need to come together and move forward as a country, and I'm confident that we'll be able to do that after the election.
Well, give us some details, Governor. What's the state of Colorado doing? What are you doing to secure polling places over the next 24 hours?
Colorado is a great election system. We make it easy to cast your ballot. Ballots went out 3 weeks ago in the mail. Most of them have been returned. If people lost their ballot or want to vote in person, they can. We have hundreds of voting centers across the state. So we want to make sure that if you have the right to vote legally, you're able to exercise that. I was just thanking election workers here at the Denver County Clerk's office. So appreciative of people who volunteer their time, come in, help make sure the signature verification is done accurately, the counting is done accurately, volunteers from the Republican and Democratic Party. That's what it's all about. Look, in Colorado, Kamala Harris is well ahead. She's going to win Colorado. We still have a hot congressional race here that could go either way. It'll be very important for the House of Representatives. Yadira Caraveo is the candidate at been working for this last weekend. But we want to make sure that every Coloradan and every American knows that your voice is important, and you can cast your ballot before the polls close tomorrow.
Well, as we consider poll closing times, that doesn't necessarily mean that is the time in which we'll know who won any given state. Even if Colorado is called early, Governor, we know that might not be the case for other states across the country. Are you hearing anything from other surrogates with this campaign, other Democratic governors, and especially some of these battleground states, about how long they expect this ultimately will take to figure out who won?
Well, look, Donald Trump and his surrogates are already trying to undermine legitimacy of this election. And we need to make sure, first and foremost, we reassure the American people that your vote will be counted fairly and accurately. And of course, there's a legal process to play out if it's close. But that's why your voice is so important. Your vote is your sacred right. Our forefathers gave their lives to protect that right to vote. It's important to use that right to make sure that we can finally turn the page on the divisive politics of the past and move forward with President Kamala Harris.
I want to explore the early vote a little bit more with you for a moment, Governor. We spoke earlier today with Dr. Laura Brown, political scientist and author. Here's what she had to say about what we're seeing in the demographics of those choosing to vote early in this election.
When you look at the overall early vote data, we don't know who is actually voting for whom, but what we do know is who is turning out. And who's turning out are white women who are older, and many of them in suburbs. Because when you look at that data, you do see that there is a gender gap, you do see that it's suburban voters, and you do see that it's more senior voters than not.
Governor, I see more than 2 million ballots have been returned in Colorado, according to your Secretary of State. What are you learning so far, and what does it lead you to believe about turnout in the end tomorrow?
So first of all, you could talk to, 5 different data scientists and you get 7 different responses about which demographic voting and who's winning. And you can see the different feeds of the different partisans on both sides. In Colorado, everybody's voting. So most of our ballots are in. People can, of course, vote through Election Day. People are accustomed to voting early, Republicans, Democrats. It's what people do. We have a long ballot. We're a state where people decide important issues on the ballot. We have choice on the ballot. We have same-sex marriage on the ballot. So these are issues that people care about independent of the candidates. And they've already turned out in record numbers, and I'm sure people are going to continue to vote right through 7 p.m. tomorrow, which is when our polls close here in Colorado.
All right. Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis, surrogate for the Harris-Walz campaign. Thank you for joining us on this election eve.